Welcome to the Keeping the Nostalgia Alive show. I am your host, Billy Powell. You're listening to this probably on the Podbean app or on the internet at Podbean. And please go to Keeping the Nostalgia Alive. That's all one word, keepingthenostalgiaalive.podbean.com. And you can hear over 170 interviews associated with the great game of basketball. Most of them are about basketball, 6 degrees of basketball from the state of Indiana. We have a few baseball ones in there. We have a couple musical ones in there. But I love to keep the nostalgia alive so I can document the past so the future can remember. So with that being said, I'm really excited about today's guest. And my wife one day told me that she goes to these. I've been in Houston, Texas since 1996. And my wife said, "Hey, evidently there's this place where they go. My wife and her friend go to buy antiques, and it's a huge event, and it happens twice a year." And she said one day, "Hey, would you like to go up to this area? And we're going to see a friends of ours who live at Black Dog Farm." And I said, "Sure." And she said, "I found this place in Carmen, Texas, and it's called the Texas Basketball Museum." And of course, I was like, "What?" Please take me there. So today on our program is the curator of the Texas Basketball Museum, Bob Springer. And he has done a great job. It is fantastic inside. We're going to give you some information on how you can get there, the phone number, when it's open, or how you can set up a personal tour, or how you can donate to help this. Because, me being from Indiana, it's all about basketball. And when I came to Texas, I thought it was all about football, but it's not. So with us today is Bob Springer, the curator of the Texas Basketball Museum. Bob, thanks for taking some time. I know you got a busy schedule. Thanks for taking some time with us to help keep the nostalgia alive and tell us about the Texas Basketball Museum.
Sure, Billy. It sounds great. I'm glad to be with you this morning, and I've always promoted basketball across the state and across the nation. So been a long time involved with the history, and of course going back to when I first started playing or trying to play, and then going on through a coaching career of 30 years in Houston, Texas, and coached in high school, all the big schools, major big schools, and then of course compiling also a magazine called Texas Basketball Magazine, which I did for 24 years because nobody else would do it. And, of course, evolving into that also with the collection over 40 years, accumulating to do a basketball museum, which I've always wanted to do.
I'm so excited to hear about this, but let's start way back there a little bit and tell everybody where you're originally from and who introduced you to the game of basketball.
Well, I was born in Canada in 1941, and coming up there, didn't have any indoctrination of sports or really involved in sports. Lived there for 9 years, and then my dad he traveled the globe building oil refineries, and we spent 2 years down in Santos, Brazil, and there did some makeshift surfing as a 9 or 10-year-old, whatever, and we played kickball. That's it, but that's the home of Pelé, a great soccer player there. We spent 2 years there, and then we came back and moved to Texas. And in Texas, basically, I was just going into high school, and I was about 6'2", and I didn't have any enthusiasm for sports or indoctrination in sports or anything like that. And I joined the band, and so I played 4 years in the band, high school band. And during that time, as I grew up, you might say, I grew 2 inches a year. I was 6'2" as a freshman, 6'4" sophomore, 6'6" a junior, and 6'8" as a senior. So the basketball coach caught my attention my junior year and asked me to come out, but I was too scared, I suppose. I didn't know anything about basketball, really. And so my senior year, the football coach, basketball coach resigned, so football coach took over. And I went out to try out and whatever, and the team was made, and I was one of the last two, down to two guys. It was between me, 6'8", and a guy that was another guy named, I think, Eddie Fisher, and he was like 5'8" or 5'10" or something like that. And so how I made the team, Billy, you're not going to believe it. Pick a number between 1 and 100. So whatever number I picked was going to be right, I think. So that's how I wound up being introduced to basketball. And of course, you know, I never played before, and I just didn't know a thing about it except just what I've at that time maybe seen on TV or something like that. Didn't go to any games or anything. Of course, with being in bands at all the football games, you know, that type of thing. But I really was just kind of a babe in the woods, just trying to learn the game, which I didn't have much experience. And of course, our team wasn't any good. We just, you know, basically we played a schedule, and the team wound up being 4-22 for the year, so nothing to brag about. So when I came out of the school, you know, I wanted to eventually start getting honed in about it. I wanted to use my height to be a basketball player, so I was trying to get involved that way. And so I didn't have these people pounding on my door to you know, like a bunch of coaches coming after me, that type of thing. But I did have one coach from Jacksonville Baptist Junior College that he offered me a full scholarship. And so I went up there and played 2 years. Didn't play. Went up there and learned 2 years at Jacksonville Baptist College. He just started the program up and been dormant forever. And so I trained real hard, and I learned from my fellow teammates and everything. Never started a game. Went through the whole period of 2 years, just trained real hard and got my fundamentals down and got developed my shot and trained hard, like I said, which was really good. So at the end of my junior college year, my roommate, Rob Evans, he says, "Bob, you ought to send out some postcards to some colleges. Just put your name and stuff down there, and where you're at, and where you played, and all that kind of stuff." And so I picked 3 schools that I would like to entertain and go. They had good basketball programs, and I received one back from Howard Payne College to try out, which was NAIA, which you could have tryouts. And I had a real good tryout, and the coach was impressed and liked what I was able to do and accomplish. And he gave me a full scholarship, which is really great. Of course, I had a full scholarship at Jacksonville Baptist College also. So going there in the program with Howard Payne, the best thing Coach did for me, Coach Glenn White, is really good coach. He redshirted me for a year, which really helped my development. I couldn't play or travel with the team, but I keep stats. Of course, we worked out every day hard. I mean, really hard. We really had some good knockdown dragouts, you might say, at a different level in college. And I played against 2 All-Americans. One was 6'7", a Brody Chest's guy, and the other one was 6'8", and he led the nation in field goal percentage his senior year. So following up with that, when I started as a junior and senior, I started all games. I led the nation in field goal percentage my junior year, following up with my fellow teammate before that, and then was a little All-American my senior year. After that, came back to Houston, got a coaching job in junior high. Coach White had asked me to come on and be on his staff here, but I was just getting married, and so I was looking to try to settle down and find a job to make some money and raise a family, this type of thing. And moved to Houston, where I got a junior high job, and then went into after a few years, got into high school, and over my 30-year career as a high school coach, I coached at Sam Houston High School for 7 years, Dulles High School for 8 years, and Memorial High School in and out for like 13 years. And half that time I was in there as an assistant coach to Coach Don Coleman, outstanding legendary coach, who just recently passed away this past week. And so I learned a lot from him. And when he passed on as his assistant, I'd already been the head coach at the other places, and I was elevated to the head coach there for about 5 years, and I retired after that.
Bob, I always have, with every guest that I have on the program, there's always some kind of 6 degrees of separation that, and what's interesting is, and I did not know this before you just stated it, but, we live basically right across the street from the Don Coleman Gymnasium here in the Spring Branch area in Houston, Texas. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's just recently they had a memorial for him. I'm going to say about, maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. And his son, Brandon Coleman, was a real advertising person, and he put together they built a bronze statue inside of him. Had a big celebration. Everybody came back to visit and watched the opening of that, besides it being named for him. But it sits in the hallway as you walk in. It's about a 9-foot bronze statue. It's really good. So, that's right there. That's right there in our area where we played with different schools. I think Stratford's right across the street.
And what high school did you play your high school basketball?
Vider High School. The other past Beaumont. And we were known for football primarily, and basketball was like the secondary thing. And that's where I played 1 year right there, and that was it.
So when did the light bulb go off over your head, or when did you think, I'm working hard at this game of basketball. I've only been playing it for 2 or 3 years. I love it, and I want to coach it. When did this light bulb go off, or when did you figure out that's what you wanted to do with your career?
Well, in the high school part, here's my intention, okay? And I developed a love for it there just during that 1 year. So my idea was I'd join the service, okay, and I'd play 2 years there or 4 years, whatever my term would be with the service. And particularly Air Force, I wanted to pick that one out first. And I tried to join, and I found out that I couldn't qualify in any of the service. I tried all 4 branches, and because I was too tall, I'm 6'8". The height limit was 6'6", so that kind of put me on the the stall there until I got to go on to Jacksonville. But as I went through and as I trained hard and got along with my teammates and learned the nature of the game and the camaraderie, the fellowship with the players and everything, and just a good time in my life, especially at Howard Payne. And just a small school, but we just were real close and everything together. And this was kind of an impetus that this is what I wanted to do, and to coach. And then, of course, that was the avenue. My major was physical education. Most of my classes were physical education until right down at the end. And we changed up and did a CDC, or a Corporal Discipline Center, to manage that for like about 5 years.
What? So were you a historian? I know you're now the curator of the Texas Basketball Museum, but were you curious about the game once you started playing it and researched and read up on it and followed certain teams, or were you, for those first 2 or 3 years, were you just focused on getting the fundamentals of the basketball game down pat with you, or was there a favorite team you liked to watch in the pros? Did you like the pros? Was there a favorite team in the college? Was there a favorite player that you liked or watched or emulated?
Well, no, really what just happens as it transpired, I just developed a love for the game, and particularly after I got to being better and competing against good teams and being a participant. I averaged a double-double, 16 points and 12 rebounds to my career, and we played some good teams, and it just was fun to me. I just enjoyed that a whole lot, and that kind of inspired me. As far as historian or doing the part, what was really put into my background when I coached with Coach Coleman is under his wing when I first started out there. as I moved from junior high to high school. He was really an inspiration. Like I says, he was kind of my mentor. And we started going to, of course, he went to the state tournament, won 6 times, won state in 1966 Memorial. But we'd always go to the state tournament. So I have gone to 50 state tournaments until recently with my legs, and we moved to San Antonio. The tournament did, and I couldn't do it anymore. So, but that inspired me to really being a professional and being involved with Basketball Coaches Association, TABC, that's our local one, and the Texas High School Coaches Association, which I've been a member of for 50 years also, and I'm a lifetime member of TABC, our Texas Association of Basketball Coaches. But being professional in history and doing my magazine, when I started my magazine, okay, I wanted to really get us recognized here in the state of Texas. And it seems like all the sports writers were up on the East Coast, and of course that's where all the propaganda came down from, where the best teams were, all the conferences and TV days then. You didn't see much about the Southwest area down here. I think they thought that we were down here riding horses and with our 6 guns on or something like that.
Bob, tell us a little bit about, now, I'm from the state of Indiana, and from 1911 to 1997, the Indiana High School Basketball Tournament was single class, which means that everybody plays everybody until you get down to the final 2 teams, and whoever wins that is the ultimate state champion. In 1997 in Indiana, they switched it to a 4-class system, and it's really lost a little bit of luster of what it used to be. And of course, we all know the movie Hoosiers, which came out in 1986. So tell the listeners who are listening from Indiana and from some of those states that did have 1-class systems, how did the playoffs and how did a basketball season work here while you were coaching?
Well, let me say something about Indiana. Okay, that's always been one of my favorites because that's a basketball state, bottom line. And I copied my magazine. I did a lot of research, and I knew all about your magazines, and do my market preview of things that are happening. And the story, what's our little school's name that won the whole thing the last time?
Milan.
Milan. Okay, there's a good story there. Okay, one of the coaches I coached against down here in Houston when I was at Sam Houston was Ronnie Truitt, and he played on the Milan team. He came down to the University of Houston and did 4 years as a player there, and then became head coach at Cy-Fair High School. Well, Ronnie was also a really good coach, and he went on when Wheatley was a big powerhouse down here. I mean, they were the team. They just took it over, man, just unbelievable, and won state championships back to back. Well, Ronnie won a state championship basically with 6 guys, and just kind of like the show, like with Milam, and he controlled the tempo. And he had some great guards, and he had a good composite of good people he put together. But he did a great coaching job. Controlled the tempo, and wound up beating the Wildcats, the Wheatley Wildcats, by about 6 points. And I think that's just really part of it. Going and doing the research from the magazine. The tier system, I like the one. I like that, like you said, when they took it away and broke it down divisions to get more participation. That's great, but they have that one history thing that you had where they all competed from one was just really fantastic, and because you all had such good stuff with sectionals and everything like that. It's really community bonded, and you already had more people participating anyway. Down here in Texas, we had divisions because of the size schools. They participated in their own zones, areas, and all that kind of stuff, regionals, and came all the way up. It was started with 4 divisions, I think. Actually 3 way back when the 20s was 3A, 2A, 1A, and so it evolved into what it is now 6A down to 1A, and everybody qualifies by number of enrollment in the schools. And of course, what is there is that the top level has the most. You want to see the most talent, okay, but not necessarily all the divisions. But each division has talent, but not as dominant. You've got more players to select from in your bigger schools. Smaller schools, like Class A, you might only have 12 guys lucky to get that to be playing basketball, and you might only have one good player, and you're working with all the other guys to bring them up. And which we have some really good coaches in Class A. Don't get me wrong, that go on and win state and just compete with other levels too. So it's really interesting. It's a really good program. And what's amazing is over the years, okay, that we had it where only the district champion would advance to the playoffs, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll give you an example of mine, which I'm not proud of, but my best team at Dallas High School was 32-5 state ranked. We came in second place and didn't go anywhere. The couple next following years, we got it changed where we went into a playoff system where it was more equal. We got it balanced up where the first two at least got to go to the playoffs. It eventually went to 3 playoff teams, which was real good. Okay, that was really strong. But now it's up to 4 playoff teams, and actually that 4th place is like cannon fodder. I mean, it's like the district champion plays the 4A team. But the plus side is if you had a star player and he was out for several weeks, you still had a chance to come back and compete and go on further and might advance in the playoffs. And I tracked that pretty good, and virtually there's only a handful that advanced into the regionals, right? But nobody's won state from the 4 playoff system like that.
You know, it's interesting. Bobby Plump was on that Milan team in 1954, and you know, we talked about Ronnie Truitt, and you know, he wasn't a major factor. I made the comment to Bobby. I said he wasn't a major factor in scoring, but you know, he came down here and coached high school basketball, and Bobby stopped me and kind of lectured me a little bit that Ronnie Truitt scored 6 points in that championship game in 1954, and if it wasn't for those 6 points, they would have lost by 5 points, and it wouldn't be what it is. And what's interesting too about Ronnie Truitt is that he is one of the few coaches that, you know, his state championship team, I think in 70 or 71, was actually proclaimed the high school basketball national champion.
That's correct. That's correct. Exactly right. And like I said, Ronnie had a good career, but he passed away early with I think prostate cancer, and they named the school a junior high after him in the Cypher system. So he's well recognized, and like I said, he did an outstanding job. He just really did. And what's also amazing is during that career win and going on to win state, Memorial played them either in district or by district. But anyway, one of those places there where this was a deciding game to advance in the playoffs. And they went 5 overtimes, and a guard that had never hit a long shot or wasn't a shooter, he threw the ball up 3/4 court and made the basket. That eliminated Memorial. So it must have been district, I suppose. But just how so competitive. But they went on and won state, which is really quite an acclaim back then.
What was your first piece of basketball memorabilia from Texas or from anywhere that you picked up and you said, you know, this is kind of a neat piece, or this is kind of neat, I like it, I'm going to display it at the house, or I'm going to put it up on the wall or whatever? Do you remember that?
Well, I've got so much stuff, it's unreal. My collection is really, I've got 1,400 square feet full. I keep buying, and I've got another room I'm going to have to go ahead and redo that to expand the museum because I'm running out of space. Excuse me. But I can't actually remember what the first piece was. I'm always collecting, and but I do have some significant pieces in the museum that are my favorite. Like I've got in other words, the building burned down today. I would go grab this ball first. Okay, it's a 1941 Reach basketball, and it's got 24 National Hall of Famers on it. Because I used to go to all the Final Fours when Houston was up there for about 10 or 11 years, even beyond them. But when we were up in Denver one time, okay, I was up there as a vendor with Shoot Away, and was up there telling my guys, we were talking to a few of my friends there as vendors of the exhibit, and said, "I'm taking this ball. I'm going to go to the main hotel, and down in the lounge area downstairs, I'll be sitting there with the rings on, Hall of Fame rings, ready for the reception to bring in the new inductees to the Hall of Fame. I'll see if I get me some signatures." So one of the guys popped up and said, "Well, hey, you ought to get Red Auerbach to sign the ball." And I said, "Sure, when are we going to find Red Auerbach? What's wrong with you?" He says, "Bob, he's sitting 4 booths from you down over here." And so I says, "Wow." Well, I made a beeline over there, and sure enough, there was Red Auerbach sitting in a big chair, lounge chair, smoking a stogie, and he just finished up with a couple of fans, and he's signing New Balance shoes pamphlets when they came out. So I came up on his blind side, and I touched him on his elbow, and I said, "Coach, have you ever seen an old ball like this? Or have you seen a basketball like this?" And he says, "Oh, man, that's an old basketball. Wow." So will you do me a favor and be the first to sign the ball, take up the whole panel, and put your name on it? And he would be glad to do that, because I'm going to have a museum one of these days. And he signed up for me, and nice and big, and it's just a really good piece with all the other people on there. Hank Iba, Frank McGuire, Ray Meyer, just on and on. Just got a bunch of really good folks. John Cundler with the Minneapolis Lakers, and Slater Martin, of course, from our hometown here in Houston. And just a really good piece. But that's one of my favorites.
So, Bob, let's go ahead and go delve into this. You tell Red Auerbach, I'm going to start a museum. Where does this idea come from? When does it kind of come into your mind? And how does while you're coaching, are you still formulating this? Give us a little bit of rundown of how. And I've been there, and it's a fantastic place. And the 1,400 square feet, man, if it could be spread out, oh my gosh, I can't say enough good things about it. But it is crammed with just great items of the history of basketball in Texas, and I'm so surprised of the 6 degrees of separation from basketball in Indiana. But when does all this appear, and when do you think of it, and tell us about this idea and how it churns and how you map it out and how it is today.
Well, what happened is I've always been a collector, you might say. And I started collecting even antiques. So I got an antique shop also, but I've always collected. And, of course, basketball has been one of my main loves, you might say, besides my wife. And probably started collecting charms and basketball cards. And the little charms they give away and they put on your leather jacket, or you give them to your girlfriend or something like that, little basketball. So I accumulated a collection of that, and, of course, basketball cards back in the 80s. So it was in the 80s. Basketball cards nobody cared about them. I mean, football or mainly baseball, that type of thing. Football is big. But basketball, you can go in the shop. I might only have $20 in my pocket to spend and everything. One time I went into the shop, to give you an example, and I came out of there with 5 Pete Maravich cards, these rookie cards.
Oh, wow.
For about $5 a piece. And I said, I just kept collecting stuff like that. Books, all these little paperback books that were on basketball. You don't see them anymore now. But I'd collect all those, anything to do with basketball. Claire B, you name it. Any authority, anything, any piece of paper, anything, I would collect it because I just loved it, And just kept collecting it and evolving, and, of course, doing my antiques, and it kept spreading out, and eventually wound up with moving up to Carmen, Texas, where we have a big antique fair that's like twice a year. It's one of the biggest in the nation, and we have thousands of dealers come down there and put their wares out, and all kind of venues and stuff. So we've got an antique shop, just like the museum, basketball museum. It is stocked full of stuff too that I've collected over the years. And so, with my idea in my back of my mind, so I've got so much stuff at the house that I just, I've got to be able to display it. I wanted to be able to have a museum one day because I've collected so much basketball memorabilia. And I was thinking, boy, I'd have to get a piece of land, build a building, and that's, it's kind of far-fetched to do that. And I had a place picked out in Burton, Texas, just 7 miles down the road. It was beautiful. and it just looked like perfect place, but too expensive. I could have fundraised and probably done it, but so I just kept going on with the idea and the idea. And then right next door to my place at the Basketball Museum, Albers Butane, the senior, the main person, died, and the daughter, and brother had custody of it. And I tried to buy it from him because the place, after a couple of years, was just getting run down and getting dilapidated and just a sore sight, you might say. And it took me 2 years to come back and make him another offer. And then I told him I want to do a basketball museum. We'd have ground top Carmen included in there also. This is prime space, because the girls won state championships back in 66, 70, and 71 with 3 different coaches. And that's back when they played 6-on-6. And they had some really good teams. And so I made a nice display for them also. So in putting that together then, all right, it took me about 2 years to get the building and buy it. And then I had to start laying it out as to the way it would work, how it would run to lay it out. And I didn't have, I had to build my own cases there around the side. And this happened by, I don't know if it's luck or just me foraging around or finding things, but so I went into one dry goods store there in Giddings, Texas, and it was closing down. It was the end of the sale. The only thing left was something nobody else wanted, and they had 4 12-foot by 3-foot width. There were counter displays, and about 36 inches off the ground, and said, well, that's what I'll do. I'll buy those. I got those, and I got them to the museum. I got them in there, and space is really tough because it has to be done just right. And my idea was I'll put these older cases on top of them and display it like that, and that looked pretty good. But the only problem is, how would I move them to get back in the back to load them up? So my wife came up with this idea and says, Bob, you ought to cut them in half. I said, sure. That's what I did. I cut them in half, and there was another store, hardware store, that went out of business in Giddings, and I got all kind of stuff there. I bought shelving. It was like, golly, 12, well, it was actually 16-foot lengths. It was already varnished on both sides and everything. I must have bought 20 pieces of that, and that's when I wound up finishing my cases around the side they're in, with the tops and the bottoms. And they had to go find glass. I'd go find glass wherever I could get it and donate it, whatever, and stuff like that. Then I'd have to cut it to fit and put rails and stuff in. That made the show display cases. And of course, I had older display cases I found, and this thing certainly worked out good to make a good display like that. And then just, like I said, been collecting basketballs. I probably get more basketballs than anybody. And I keep looking for them. I've got about 14 old basketballs that are in the 20s or teens. They're lace basketballs that I've acquired, and they might wind up being deflated, and I'd have to take them apart and stuff them with paper or packing beads, that kind of stuff, and relace them, and they turned out real nice. But it's just the love of the game. I just always wanted to share it with people. It's a little tradition, pass it on to let people know where it's come from and show how good we were at one time, and we still are. And just promote the sport. That's what I do.
I guess I've been saying, how do you pronounce Carmine? Is it Carmen? Is that how you pronounce it? I've been pronouncing it Carmine.
Actually pronounce it Carmine.
Carmine. Okay, Carmine.
Yeah, like the red color. But what the deal was, they had way back when the town first filled up, they had a problem between 2 zip codes. There's 2 towns that sound together, and we had the right name, but so we had to trade it off and make it Carmine or Carmine, where it was Carmine before, and we wound up with that name. So that's what the locals tell me anyway. So it's worked out good. Location's good. The gentleman across the street that built a nice restaurant and the nice place up front. He was a civil engineer and did a super job. And it opened up the same time the museum opened up. And here's the other part of the story. So, we used to live in Houston, so we had a nice place there, older place. And I finally get the museum done, and I told my wife, says, I can't say I'm going to meet somebody in an hour and 15 minutes if I'm lucky to get there by then, and drive all the way up here and hope they're still here. Because basically, the way I do a museum, I do it by appointments. I can't afford to have anybody at the counter or something like that stay there the whole day, and I just can't afford it. You don't make money on museums. It's strictly something that's done out of your goodwill, good heart, and that type of thing, and any funding you can get, which is basically my basketball magazine helped provide a lot of the funding for what I've put together and buying the building, that kind of stuff. So, but it's come along good, and every once in a while we do take donations, and I've had some good donations come in and really helps get me along, that type of thing. Plus our Texas Association of Basketball Coaches, they give me a stipend also that helps with the utilities and stuff and the insurance on the building itself, so we don't lose anything. So it's worked out okay where the jobs gets done. But basically, I have to make appointments. I ask people to make appointments. Got a big sign on the front door. Just call me. I live 3 blocks away. I'll come down, open up anytime, 24/7, any time of the day. If you come in with your buddies from Austin on the way back home, it's 11 o'clock at night, I'll come down, open up for you. That's what I do for basketball.
And that is true because once we found this place out, we called you on our little trip to up there, and you showed up and gave us a tour, which was fantastic. You guys also have a Facebook page, so you can find Bob and the Texas Basketball Museum on Facebook at Texas Basketball Museum. And I mean, firsthand, I've gone through, and I'm from the state of Indiana, so everything that I went in and took a look at, and his displays and his presentations, it's just, it's not a huge place, but there's a huge amount. I would say that, I have been to the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. I would say there is probably the same amount of stuff inside the Texas Basketball Museum that there is in the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, just because the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame has so much room to spread out. Yours is more concentrated. So I think it's fantastic. So make sure to find the Texas Basketball Museum up on Facebook, and you're going to find a lot of stuff. And here, pretty soon, probably you'll be able to donate onto the Texas Basketball Museum page on Facebook also. Bob, inside the Texas Basketball Museum, when you go to the right, there's a thing where everybody's in the Texas Basketball Hall of Fame. Is there a Hall of Fame in Texas? How does that work?
Okay, it's diminutive compared to Indiana. I've been to your museum in Newcastle. Okay, and just like blew me away. I just love it. It's one of the best museums ever. All of them have been. You got so many great people up there and players that coaches have been through there. And, Larry Bird, John Wooden. I've got John Wooden's signature on the ball, too. It's another story. But I walked through the whole thing and saw how your Hall of Fame's laid out. And, of course, when you all have inductions, you don't induct 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 like we do yearly. You all do about 21 a year. And we've got a bunch of people to catch up on. But like I said, I'm running out of space. I've got to expand because we got a lot more people that need to be recognized. But what we do is we have a Hall of Fame committee, okay, which I'm not on. Basically, I just take care of everything and try to do the right job. And they pick out the people that are nominated. They have to put their resume up. Somebody has to put them up for nomination, that type of thing. Then the committee goes through the nominations, look at what's been, laid before them, and they pick out the people that are going to be inducted that year. And it'll range from usually try to get at least 1 or maybe 2 women, and then the rest are gentlemen, and players, coaches, predominantly, and a good mixture and everything. And that works out really good. So that's kind of a little format, but it goes through the Texas Association of Basketball Coaches. They have that Hall of Fame committee, and that's where you find me with the museum too.
So then there, you have wall space and you have them on your wall inside the Texas Basketball Museum. Is there another place in the state of Texas that those people who are in the Texas Basketball Hall of Fame. Is there another place for that, or is it just your place that has them shown?
This is the only museum in the state of Texas for basketball, and it started in '71 with the inductions and everything, and it actually started back. It evolved from Athens, Texas, to Dallas, Texas, to Waco, Texas, to finally wound up in Waco, Texas, and a nice edifice called the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, all sports. So back before they developed that, the man important was Charlie McCreary. He's passed on, but he's a really nice gentleman. He loved tennis as much as I love basketball. So there's like a quadrant off there, like a string of buildings there that he ran, that he put this stuff together with the basketball museum and the tennis museum. And he got them to build the building, okay? All right. What happens now, okay, in the museum, how they do the things that they do to try to raise some money to support this nice, beautiful building and pay for what goes on, is they really emphasize the pros, and they emphasize the colleges, and they sell tables when they have an induction up there, and then you get to rub shoulders with the guys and shake hands and buy memorabilia or signatures, this type of thing, and that kind of sustains them and gets them by and everything, and which is what they have to do yearly, which they do a good job with. It's a good visit, no nice place. But for our basketball museum, when I used to go up there and walk through there, I liked the place, but the only thing that showed up for basketball was I would tell people, says, I've got more stuff in my master bedroom. That's about the size they had displayed. And so they just didn't have it all out there the way it should be, that I thought, So as a coincidence, our executive director of the TABC, Rick Shirley, we were talking and said, Bob, we're gonna have to move out of the museum. They're going to double our rent, and can afford to pay the rent. It's too much. I mean, they wanted to double it, so they need more room for football, I suppose, or whatever. But so I told Rick, says, well, Rick, I'm going to do a basketball museum. I'm in the process of doing that. I've got a place for you to come. So use it as a little leverage and, show them that we'll move if that be the case. And that's what happened. I wanted to take my big enclosed trailer and get the whole thing and bring it on back to the house. And then we got it all set up and everything. So, but it took a while. It took about a year to remodel the place and get it all located and go through all the stuff and get it sorted out to put in the right place and everything. And that's kind of the way it is right now. But I do need to expand, I'm afraid, and I have to figure out how I'm going to do that with that room. I can't see the flow in my mind right now, but the space is valuable.
Too, it's, you also have, which I think is very unique. You have a great display of Pete Maravich items. I'd like to know kind of like how you got into the love of Pete Maravich, and also for those ABA people, you even got a little bit of an ABA section there in the museum.
Well, going back to Pete Maravich, the basketball museum is all about Texas players, high school players, coaches, contributors to the pros, and that's the emphasis. But I have national stuff in there, like the display I have for Pete Maravich. Well, the all-time best players ever. He's doing stuff before anybody thought about it. The most dedicated person on the court that could do amazing things with the basketball, not just shoot the ball. Even though he averaged 44 points a game for all 3 years as a varsity, even averaged 44 as a freshman too. They don't publicize that much, but just an awesome player, and he's just always been one of my favorites. And I'll pick up stuff like I'll go to auctions or go to estate sales or wherever I can find it, and I'll buy stuff that the last thing I got was a Kurt Nowitzki jersey, framed jersey I put in there, having some from the Dallas Mavericks. And I've got a lot of Houston stuff. I don't have quite as much stuff from San Antonio, even though they probably won more, NBA championships. Houston's got 2 and Dallas got 1. They've got about 5, I think. But try to give equal billing for the women. Of course, I bought 20,000 basketball cards at one time. Got a deal, and let's talk the guy into it and told him what I was going to do with it and everything. My idea was to go through it and find all the guys from Texas high schools that went on to play pros. It took me about a month to go through them, and I found 300 cards of former high school players that made it to the NBA and played for 1 or 2 years or whatever, or he's still playing today, But that's back from the 90s on. And, of course, I've got a basketball card collection that goes back to the 60s. And I've got every year he just catalogs. I've already got them boxed up and everything. Every year I've got cards for each one. Sometimes I've got multiple years of cards that I've collected over the years. Not shown, just put up in cases and trunks that I have in another room. So it's been something I just love to do. I've always collected magazines, got the picture on the front, maybe a Sports Illustrated every once in a while, but just significant things over the years. I just kept collecting, this thing I could find. And was basketball inspired, So, like I said, Larry Bird's one of my favorite players. Today I like the Big 12. I like Kansas. I like Texas Tech. I like Baylor. There's a lot of good teams in Big 12, so they're kind of partial to our state. So I like that a whole lot. And as far as players today, Jimmy Butler is a Texas player. He's pretty daggum good. Of course, Chris Bosh. There's all kind of players we can mention. But he's currently still playing, changing teams. He's still with. I'm not sure what team he's with. He's jumped around a little bit here. But it's just really amazing that a lot of talent. Right now, we rank probably as one of the top 3 in the nation in regards to basketball, the size of our membership with TABC, and probably the number of people that are coming out of Texas that are playing pro basketball is quite significant.
Bob, do you guys do you have any children?
Yeah, I've got a son. He played basketball and didn't like to do his career on it or anything, but he's up in New York, believe it or not. He's married to his wife. He's got her PhD in psychiatry, and she's working at Columbia University. And he's a pitmaster at I got to think McReynolds Barbecue. I think that's the right name. I'll probably give you the wrong name, but he's been there a good while, and he knows how to does the meat for sure. But he's also got his master's in creative writing, and he should be a professor in college. But keep telling him on his portfolio he just needs to keep gathering stuff. He's been published 24 times with his poetry. But just great example, good hard-working people, and he loves basketball too. He's really good guy.
I'm going to put all this information in the little summary of what our podcast and what our show is about. But tell us again, if you'd like, the physical address of the museum and also the phone number that they can get in contact with if somebody would like to do a tour.
Okay. The physical address is 107 Augsburg Street at the corner of Hofstrasse Street, 1 block south on 290, halfway between Austin and Houston, Texas. You'll find it. And I do it by appointment. And just call me ahead, and we'll get together at times, because sometimes I have to go to Houston. I might meet you. Not like get together with you, because I've got doctors have to go down there. But the number is 713-898-7667. And that's the best way to get me. And leave a message. If you don't get me right away, I'll return all my calls right away. And we'd love to have you come by and visit, and hope you have a good time.
And is there an email address, or is there a way that they can donate, or just go through the phone number that you just give if they would like to donate or to the museum?
Well, I've got an email address is Texas, spelled out Texas, BKB at swbell.net. And on my site there, I have a place where you can buy a magazine, And that's kind of formed. I've got old magazines that I go over the years. I sell magazines on that. But technically, they could make a donation there, I think, somehow. But I never, proceeded with that type thing. But we welcome donations, or they can just mail it to P.O. Box 401, attention Bob Springer, Carmen, Texas 78932, Texas Basketball Museum. And that way they could just send me a check. That'd be fine. I'd really appreciate that, and we definitely put to good use.
Now, look, I'm from the state of Indiana where it's basketball crazy. I'm a basketball nut. I went there. I've been to the Texas Basketball Museum, guys, listeners, and I unfortunately and fortunately went with my wife. So that means my time was limited at what I could spend at the Texas Basketball Museum. I could have spent the whole day there with Bob and going through stuff. And the amount of stuff, I'm telling you, if you live in Texas and you want to do a day trip, if you live in Houston, you want to just, Houston, Austin, anything, and you want to do a day trip and you love the game of basketball, this is a fabulous place to go and just to check it out. Bob Springer does a fantastic job of being the curator, and I can't say anything more, and I can't wait actually to get back up there. So I know we went a little bit long, Coach Springer, but I thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can get this out there, get some stuff going for the museum, and see what we can do with your future plans.
That sounds great, Billy. I really appreciate you calling me up like this and interviewing me, and I wish you a blessed day.